Hello, my name is Martin Cowan, and I am the author of this book, Fabian Libertarianism, 100 Years to Freedom. And I am creating a series of videos in which I am going to be giving advice to libertarian candidates who are going to start running now for offices up for election 2 years from now. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. In 1972, I attended the Georgia Libertarian Party Convention. In 2016, I attended the Georgia Libertarian Party Convention. What this means is that I have been a libertarian for 44 years. One of the great disappointments to libertarians in Georgia over that 44 years is that we have never elected a libertarian to the General Assembly of Georgia. And it is my hope and intention to correct that failure by this series of videos and by work in support of libertarian candidates in Georgia. Now, the point of this particular video is to advocate for the following proposition. There is no place in a modern libertarian campaign for the advocacy of anarchy, or there is no place in a modern libertarian campaign for the advocacy of anarcho-capitalism. Now, let me say immediately that I am not an anarchist and I'm not an anarcho-capitalist, but I am not suggesting that there is something morally wrong or anti-libertarian about being an anarcho-capitalist. Some of my best friends are anarcho-capitalists. What I am arguing is that when you're trying to persuade people who are not familiar with the NAP, the non-aggression principle, who are not familiar with basic economics, it is not appropriate to start with the subject so esoteric in libertarian thought as anarcho-capitalism. So let me give you 3 specific reasons why I think we need to avoid talking in our campaigns about anarcho-capitalism. Number 1, anarchy or anarchist is a slur word. When a normal person hears either of those words, there is not a good connotation connected with it, and that can't be fixed. Everybody within the sound of my voice will remember the fact that liberal used to be the word that described what libertarians are in the 19th century, but because of various factors, we have lost that word, and the word liberal is now itself a slur word for socialists, and we have adopted a new word to describe ourselves, which is libertarian. So the first reason we don't want to be called anarchist or be arguing for anarchy or anarcho-capitalism is that it is a slur word, and we start out way behind when we use it. The second thing is the following. We have a 100-year task against in front of us, thus my subtitle, 100 Years to Freedom. We have a long way to go. Now that's very discouraging to the young people here, but I'd just like to remind you that I've been a libertarian for 44 years, and so I've seen 44% of 100. But I'm not saying we have merely 56% more to go or 56 more years. I'm saying we have 100 straight up years to go before we're going to get this back. And we have to start gradually and work on it incrementally. And the first task we have before us is to teach basic economics to our constituency and to the people in general. Our country, our students, our adults are all completely ignorant of basic economics. To illustrate this point, I don't know that you've ever argued about the minimum wage for anybody, but as a libertarian candidate, were you to go before a Kiwanis Club, say, and argue that the minimum wage was a bad idea, I think you would find that you have great difficulty, and that is because those people in that club are not familiar with basic economics. How much more difficult would it be to bring up the subject of anarchy or anarcho-capitalism and try to persuade them of it? No chance. You will be dismissed as a complete lunatic offhand. And the final thing I want to talk about is incrementalism in general. We have a very, very long way to go, and we can only proceed by doing small steps. Therefore, for example, rather than arguing that there should be no taxation, which most libertarians would ultimately go there after 100 years, what we need to say, and not even 10%, we don't need to say that the budget ought to be 10% of what it is, which would be much more reasonable in libertarians' view. We can't say that. We can't get there. That's not how to begin this argument. What we have to do incrementally and gradually is start small by saying something like, I'm for a budget that's reduced by $1 a year. Now, of course, that's very dramatic because you're stopping an incremental increase, a percentage increase every year in the federal or the state budget or whatever budget you're talking about, and that in and of itself is dramatic. But that's the basis of our approach. It has to be incremental. So those three things. Number one, it's a slur word, anarchy. Number two, we have to do other things such as teach basic economics. And number three, we must act incrementally, gradually, over time, and only then will we succeed. Now, as I say, I have written this book, Fabian, Libertarianism, 100 Years to Freedom. And what I'm doing in this series of videos is enacting my book. I intend to enact my book, which is to help recover American freedom starting now. And if you would like to join me and understand what my activities are all about, please read my book. Thank you for listening to me, and I look forward to talking to you again.